What's going on, everybody? The occasional detailer here, and today I've got the Maxflow MPRO, I think 25 Gen 2 here with me. You see I got the hose, I got nozzles, PSI gauge, and my gun here. Pretty much gonna unbox this guy and then test it out, see what the performance is for you guys. This is my first experience with a Maxflow product. I've been a little bit hesitant to sort of try their stuff in the past because it just didn't seem that appealing to me. It seemed kind of, it was like middle of nowhere kind of performance. And by that, I don't mean that it wasn't performing well. I meant that it was kind of like, oh, slightly over 2 GPM, but at a very high premium where it's like maybe I would get an active 2.3 or something else at that price range. But my friends, Keeve and Steve Pearson, have talked very highly of this, and so I decided, let me just go ahead and buy this, give it a try. My understanding is that they addressed a couple of different things that I personally didn't like from the first generation, which made me hesitant to even look at one, which was the noise levels, as well as some of the ramp up time. For me, that's kind of like a deal breaker. There shouldn't be any reason that you'd have to wait for a ramp up, and especially that ramp down that it had. My understanding is that it still has the ramp down, but the ramp up should have been greatly improved. But let's go ahead and get this thing open and see if the performance kind of makes up for some of those little drawbacks. All right, so I'm just gonna start by getting all this stuff out of our way here. We'll get back to this stuff later when we actually get to the testing portion of the video. But let's get this guy over here. Okay, so right over here on the side, they do have both your inlet and outlet. So it looks like here we're gonna have, and this is a little bit tough, which I guess makes sense, which is why they have that threaded pattern there for a screwdriver, but I was able to get that out. Oh, that's interesting. There's some like yellowish fluid coming out of there. So I'm not sure if that indicates that it was used. I know sometimes, at least like in the example of like when I've had foam cannons made for me, they do actually test them before they come out, but I'm not exactly sure why this is leaking and what this fluid is, because it's not clear fluid, it is yellow. But it seems like this is going to be our inlet. It's nice that it's brass as opposed to being plastic. And then we got our M22, not sure, and this is also wet actually. So it seems that maybe they do test these ahead of time. But anyway, M22, not 100% sure whether that's 14 or 15. Doesn't really matter because the attachments that we have that all come included with any of our kits are universal, and so because of that, they're going to work on either an M22 14 or 15. You don't have to guess, you don't have to worry about it, and these are included in all the kits, so we'll just throw that on here and not worry about that. Perfect. Outside of that, up top here, you still have your knob. And you got your little reminder here saying that you need to fill this before operating. And so let's go ahead and take care of that. I believe the instructions say that it's at the bottom. And this thing is still leaking this yellow fluid. I wonder what that is. But anyway, I'm gonna get this turned over. I'm gonna see if I can get all of the liquid to kind of stop leaking from here and fill the oil up. And then we're gonna get started with like doing some initial testing, get everything hooked up and all that stuff. All right, future me here, ironically wearing the same shirt. I was editing this video, and in general, I'm not at all happy with how this video went. I'm not happy with practically any portion of it. The biggest problem has been the unit itself, and that's kind of why the video has kind of been shitty, because I've just had to spend a lot of time troubleshooting it. I think I'm 18 hours deep in just working with the pressure washer itself and trying to get some sort of usable outcome out of it. And I haven't really been able to get something consistent and conclusive for you guys. And so I just thought this was a good spot to interject, because this is kind of where the problem started. Really, the problem actually started with the retailer. The retailer that I purchased this from took like 8 days to send out the unit to me because they lost it or whatever. Doesn't seem like they have good ops, because we spent a lot of time pretty much talking back and forth, trying to figure out what's happening. And every single conversation, it was always different answer. That has nothing to do with the product, I know, but that's part of the reason why the initial day was rushed. The second reason is because I had to leave. I was going out of town that same day. I was expecting this review to, or rather first impressions video, to go up like 3 weeks earlier than it actually is going. But because of the retailer delay, and then if that wasn't bad enough, the courier kind of lost it for a couple days, and then even once it started moving again, it was showing that it was going to show up on the day, I think right before I left, or the day that I was leaving. And so I was like, okay, even if it gets here in the afternoon, I'm going to have, a solid 3 hours, and that's more than enough time to kind of, mess with the unit. But then, it definitely was not going to be out that day. And so I actually had to go intercept the package because, and even when I got there, they're like, oh, you got lucky because this wasn't going to go out today. This was going to go out, after you were gone. And so had to spend some time to intercept that. And then once I got it and had it in hand, now you're kind of seeing kind of the process. We had that leak. That was the first problem. We also had an electrical issue, and then from there we had performance issues with the unit overall. And so that's just kind of a preview to everything. The unit just doesn't perform. It doesn't perform consistently, and it's not getting anywhere near the numbers that you should be getting. I have been talking to Maxflow over the last week. I let them know immediately as soon as I was having the issues with the leaking. I was like, let me just, reach out to them and see what's up with that, because I wanted to provide some sort of answer to what was going on. And then I also wanted to know, hey, should I even waste any time on this? They told me I shouldn't worry about it, that it's probably just water. I knew it wasn't water because of the color. And then also afterwards, after a period of time, it got sticking on my hands and it started to smell like coolant. Eventually, somebody did put me in touch with Sunny directly, who we've been talking for the past week since then about kind of everything that's going on here. And he let me know that it's pump saver. In my instance, I had a lot more than I think what the norm would be, and so he's just passing along that feedback to the factory. Nobody that I know that has ever had a Maxwell product has had anything come out of there, and so to have something come out, and especially as much as I did, the video that you guys saw previously doesn't do any justice to it, because I cleaned it, and then it kept dripping, and I cleaned it several times, and then at one point I just was like, I need to move on, right, from this part and get to the next stuff. And so I just flipped the unit, and like 200 mLs of that stuff came out. And so not ideal there, but that's just kind of like a one-off issue, and it really has zero impact on what performance would be or anything like that. So it's really like a non-factor for practically anybody else, even if it does happen. But just a heads up, if it does happen to you, that's what it is. No need to freak out, no need to worry. If anything, I would just run water through it right away and clear out the entire system. So not a real issue there. The second issue that I ran into right away actually did not allow me to do anything with the unit that one day, and that's why I had to wait another week to get back home to then really start testing, is that, and I learned this after the fact in talking to Sunny, because we started talking once I was already at the airport is when he was able to get back to me. And so their specific GFCI, and I say this specifically this way because their claim is that all GFCIs work this way, and some other people I know are going to probably tell me in the comments that this is also a common thing with GFCIs. But for the most part, I'm not going to have a manufacturer displace any accountability of their product, and just take what they're saying at face value, especially when it's, again, to displace accountability or to make a situation seem better than it actually is, even though they're very kind people. But in my experience, I have 6 pressure washers sitting next to me. I've already tested the Active 3.0. I just decided to shoot this first and get this video out first because of the fact that nobody has a video out there, or at least nobody would have had a video out there when I originally started shooting this. I was supposed to get this done by. I think there's one person, AMI Detail, who has like a video or 2 videos of them using the unit, and they're the only ones that have any sort of documentation of the performance that it's actually getting. And I'll leave their video link below. Because their unit, I think unbeknownst to them, is also defective. They're not getting anything close to what the numbers should be getting. I believe they're getting 835 PSI at 2 GPM, which is way, way, way lower than you should actually be getting on this. Even if we consider the previous Gen 1, I believe people were getting 2.3 GPM at probably 900,000 PSI, which is what I was expecting to get here. I wasn't really expecting a performance bump here. It would have been nice. Keith told me he was getting 2.38 GPM is what he got in his testing. I've gotten nowhere near close to that. And so GFCI issue, that's why you see kind of this up here now. I've used this on an extension cord and off an extension cord. In my personal case, it hasn't had any influence on the voltage or the amperage that I'm getting or on overall performance. It has been inconsistently, and the only consistency being it being underperforming throughout the 30 plus times that I've tested the unit. And so I guess that brings us to the next topic of just performance, right? I wasn't able to get a consistent result. I might have stated this earlier. I had to re-record this because memory cards overheated. And I guess the one time that I got a really great take, for whatever reason, there wasn't any audio recording, which, I mean, I guess I should check if there's audio recording this time around. So let's just quickly do that so we don't have to shoot this for, the 6th time. Am I getting audio? Yeah, we're good there. Anyway. The way I want to shoot my footage is I'll do maybe an unboxing or we'll go over the contents of what's included. In Maxflow's case, I didn't really showcase it in this video, but their packaging is excellent. It's probably the best protected unit of any pressure washer you're ever going to receive. It's not even close. They just did a really great job with creating their box and the protective materials within the box. And so you should have a great experience when you receive it. It's the thickest cardboard of any unit that I have. I have like an Active 3.0 box over there, and it's kind of like all torn apart and everything like that, and nowhere near as thick as the cardboard that they're using. So Maxflow does a phenomenal job with packaging. It's truly uncomparable and not even close to anybody else. And so they did a great job there. I think an area that they dropped the ball on here is going to be they supplied you with nozzles, but they didn't supply you with a orifice for a foam cannon. And the reason why I think that's important this time around is that when you go to these higher flowing units, they're not 3.0s, right? But they're supposed to be hitting 2.3. And at that point, you actually do need a different nozzle size in order for them to not overamp than the standard 1.25 that foam cannons come with. And so I believe Active does provide one. And so for me, that's just like the expectation from a manufacturer to supply that, because it's something that the accessory makers are not going to be supplying. And even if they did, just like in the same way that you provide nozzles that are sized appropriately for this unit, you should provide an orifice that's also sized appropriately. I've had other people argue with me on this, which I think is ridiculous, especially coming from like a retailer, because you're not even at that point. It's like you're not even acknowledging the fact that this is actually for your own protection and benefit too, more than an inconvenience for the customer, and then assuming that the customer would know. Like they very clearly don't. That's why they come to videos like this to learn and ask questions. And so in terms of what's the benefit for the manufacturer and retailer is that, one, you get everything that you need with the unit. And that way you have fewer, I guess, customer service tickets. You're going to have fewer complaints from customers who end up overamping their machines and blowing breakers and things of that nature. You're going to have fewer returns. And overall, it's going to save you a lot of money. And an orifice at a manufacturer's cost is, or rather, not even at a manufacturer's cost, that wholesale cost is 30 cents. And it's not even a defensible, thing where it's like, oh, it's going to add cost. The stainless steel one is 30 cents. And so to me, that's just a no-brainer. Throw it in there, saves you tons of money and an unnecessary operational headache. But overall, not a super big deal. I just think that it's an area of opportunity. Now, with the performance issues, I wasn't able to get a lot of footage of it consistently. I did 2 test runs here, which we'll watch shortly after this, where the performance actually got better, still at an unacceptable level. At the worst scenario, I was able to get one run, at only 1.4 GPM and around 300 PSI. Once I got that, that was really probably somewhere between my 15th and 20th time actually testing the unit. The first, I would say like the first 90% of the time, I was hitting around 1.8 GPM and 700 PSI. I would sometimes get some bumps where I would get to 1.83 PSI, 1.83 GPM and 750 PSI, but for the most part, it was 1.8 GPM. So that was like 90% of the runs. And then on the lower end, I got that 1.4 GPM at 300 PSI, and then for 4 runs after that, which one of the runs I did record because I sent it to Keith because I was actively talking to him, and I was like, you're not going to believe how bad this is, dude. I was getting 1.6 GPM and around 400-ish to 450 PSI for those additional 4 to 5 runs. And so the only replicatable thing I was able to get was 1.8. And so at this point, I started to talk with Sunny significantly more because I didn't want to misrepresent the product, so I wanted to make sure that I was doing everything correctly. I already kind of knew that I was, but I just wanted to double check. I want to see if there's any reset procedure to do a hard reset on the software, because I know with 99% like confidence that this is a software-related issue or an ECU-related issue, and that's one of the various drawbacks to their, I guess, chosen electric motor unit. So they're using a permanent magnet motor. To me, I think this is just new tech for the sake of new tech. I understand why they do it. Their parent company makes and specializes in making permanent magnet motors. So for them, it's just, being able to produce more of these. And then also probably, efficiency and costs for Maxflow. And then it's also just, something that they can market and be first to market on. And in a conversation that I had with them most recently today or yesterday, I think, seems like they just got a patent on this, so congratulations to them on that. But I'm not seeing any benefit that the consumer gets out of this. The unit is way loud. It's louder than practically any other unit I've ever tested. They told me that I should be getting 74 decibels. I'm getting 90 decibels out of this guy. It also has that high pitch, shrilly sound that every universal motor has and every cheap pressure washer has. And it's just also, you're not getting better performance. Like it's not like I'm getting the performance that I would out of an induction motor like the Active 2.3 has, where, it's staying under 15 amps, and getting the numbers it's supposed to hit. In fact, the only person that I know who's actually getting the numbers that I don't even know if they're getting the numbers they're supposed to get, but they're getting the amperage that they're supposed to get. They're constantly at, 15.1, 15.2 amps, which Sunny's told me that this is actually meant to operate at 15.2. So if you're seeing above 15 amps, that's actually within, not just like within a tolerance of a spec, but actually what you're expected to get out of this unit. And so they're just playing at the very, very high end of the amperage range there. Where generally speaking, for a 15 amp motor, it's really a 13 amp motor that most people have. And that you should be playing around that 13 amp range and try to avoid 15 amps. And so for them, they're just playing at that 15 amp range, and that's what they're targeting, and that's what you should expect to be getting as a power draw. And so that's the one thing I wasn't getting, and which is why I think this is software related. I was getting all over amps. Like on the lowest end, I'm getting like 4.5 amp draw. In the most consistent, when I was at the 1.8 GPM range, I was getting like at 11.5 amps. And so I know that it's something to do with that. And so, yeah, like it's just the inconsistency, because instead of saying, okay, here is electricity, utilize the max that you're able to allow because this is mechanical and resistance based as opposed to computer based, now it doesn't do that. It's interpreting information that it's receiving and processing and then doing whatever it wants. It's, like I said, louder. It's not more power efficient, and then you have to deal with the things that make it a non-starter for me outside of the sound, which is the ramp up, which to their credit is practically not there anymore on this unit. It's maybe a second, and so that's just totally fine with me. It's not a big deal at all, but it's really more the startup and how long it takes to start up before you're able to use it, as well as the ramp down. Whenever you let go of the trigger here, this thing spikes up to like 15.4 amps in my case. which is why I know it can do and handle the power, but it just doesn't seem to do it on a consistent basis when you're actually running the unit. And then also the fact that it takes forever to kind of ramp down and is still noisy, those to me are just kind of like non-negotiables. The whole point of getting an electric pressure washer is because it's meant to be quiet and immediately turn on and off when commanded. So to me, you're getting none of the benefits of an electric pressure washer here, and you're getting a lot of cons that come with a permanent magnet motor. And so, yeah. And I know this is kind of getting a little bit drawn out, and it kind of sounds like a hit piece. And the reason why I've recorded this 5 times is because of how I didn't want this to come out like a hit piece. I want it to be very honest. If anything, although it sounds pretty bad, and it sounds like I'm kind of really beating down on Maxflow, I would say that I've been incredibly biased in their favor. By spending the 18 hours that I have troubleshooting and trying to get a favorable result of their unit, as well as being in constant communication and making more than a good faith effort to try to, solve this issue with them, as well as, waiting and reshooting a lot of times in order to get something that I feel is fair. And so we'll kind of get into the footage of this, and then I'll kind of wrap up with my kind of final thoughts of what I think you should do if you're considering this unit. And so we'll just jump into the footage. So I'm about to start filling the Maxflow, but it doesn't seem like by default that their nozzle works. So I don't know if you have to cut this or anything like that, but nothing sort of comes out. So I'm gonna grab some scissors and cut this. Overall, pretty poor setup process, I would say. So not off to a good start. All right, back with some scissors. We'll just cut the tip off, I guess. All right, back with some scissors, and I guess we'll just cut the tip off. And okay, it's not really easy to cut off apparently. Maybe because you're not supposed to cut this off. There we go, it came out. Let's get this bad boy filled up. And I'm really hoping that the performance ends up making up for this process. And actually the side plate on mine's actually a little bit damaged on the other side that we didn't see before as well. And I don't think that the oil is actually going in either. Like I saw some of it come out of where it's supposed to go. But as far as I can tell, this actually isn't putting any oil inside. Let me see if I can lift this up a little bit more. Now the instructions say that I can fill it up this way, but I'm really not getting that much progress this way. And so I'm just gonna flip this all the way over, because they also have it in the instruction manual like this, and see if I do any better this way. So we'll stick that in there. Am I like losing my mind, or is like nothing coming out of here? Or is it just coming really slowly? I think it's just coming really slowly, although it's leaking out the side too. Okay, well, I guess this is just gonna be like a, and now I gotta put this down. But yeah, I guess this is gonna be a 10-minute process just to pump this oil out, which not ideal, considering everything else in the world is just ready to go out of the box. But anyway, I'll get this done and then check back in. All right, we got that done, but it's still leaking. Doesn't smell like anything. I texted Steve since he's more familiar with this than I am. His hasn't done it, but he mentioned that it could be some coolant or something like that, but I don't see why it would be leaking. I haven't seen anybody's on the Gen 1 leak like this either, and this hasn't stopped since it's gotten here. I wonder if it leaked in the, well, no, because it was plugged up beforehand, so it wouldn't leak in the box. I wonder if I just have a bad unit. I mean, that's totally in the realms of possibility and aligns with my luck. But anyway, let's get some fittings on these guys and get started on some tests. Over here, I've got some outlets. Another negative here is that I've had a lot of struggles with their water inlet, with it kind of like leaking. There's a really specific way you have to go about installing either your hose or, in this case, like let's say a quick disconnect plug. And normally, the way that I tell everybody to do this is that I see people grabbing wrenches and really cranking down on these. There's never a need to do that. You never want to do that. You'll actually damage the gasket that's on the other side of this, or that's on the back end of this. You typically just want to go hand tight, and that's about it. You never need to do anything more than that. Maybe you want to do afterwards, maybe a quarter turn if you get a little bit of a leak. But what I found is that this guy pretty much always leaks, and you have to really do things a very specific way to have any hopes of it not leaking. And so this has a lot of kind of back and forth play. You want to make sure that this is pulled all the way out, and you kind of want to hold it out there while you thread this part in. If you kind of like push it all in like this and have that going kind of a little bit more towards the rest of the pressure washer, you are guaranteed a bunch of leaks and you're not going to have a good time. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand twist this. We'll probably still get leaks. And so I'm just going to grab a croissant wrench and I'm just going to torque this down anyway, which normally I would never do and that you should never do because that'll damage the gasket. But in this case, it's actually essential. And let me just kind of tighten this up a little bit here. And sometimes even with cranking this down quite a bit, it still ended up leaking. And so we'll see what happens if I get sprayed. I got sprayed earlier right before because I did want to test again and see if I would get some different results and just, you know, be like, okay, now that I have all this kind of like content, or in terms of like conversation of like, hey, it's not performing. And then the one time that I get it on footage, right now it's going to perform great and I'm going to look like a dick. But anyway, that does it there. And so the other thing I have here, and this is more unique to me, every single, I guess, package that you can purchase at theoccasionaldetailer.com regarding hoses, and well, pretty much that's pretty much all you can buy is like a whole pressure washer accessory package. I include one of these guys. This is totally different from what everybody else kind of includes or recommends on Amazon. What this does is it'll take your M22 and it'll provide a coupler that you can just plug in. The reason why I do this is because this is the standard. I don't understand why now people are making these, I guess, on the hoses, making both ends a coupler, where the standard is a plug on one side, a coupler on the other. And that's exactly how I do it as well, because I want you guys to be able to use the accessories with other pressure washers that you have. So you might have a gas pressure washer for doing things outdoors. At least the clean stream hose, the steel braided hose, is more than good enough to work on a gas pressure washer up to 4,000 psi. And so no need to buy, like 3 different things there. And the other big cool thing about this is that it's not the standard kind of like M22 side with like a plug going out of it. This is actually similar to like a GHT style coupler where you actually have a gasket in here. And so this is also a universal. So there's no guessing. You don't have to find something specific for M2214 versus M2215. This is going to work on everything. And so I have kind of a similar thing to adapt your, if you like your stock gun, to adapt that and add a swivel to it. And it works the same way. You don't have to worry about whether it's M2214 or 15. It's just going to work. And so that I find to be super cool. It took a very long time to get a manufacturer to kind of make this. There are a couple that did make this, but they made the brass too thin, and it would actually cave in on itself all the time, and then you wouldn't be able to ever actually use it by the time it actually shipped to you. And so that's one that's super unique to me. And give me 1 second, I'll get this tightened down because I need a bigger croissant wrench, and then we'll get everything hooked up. See, when you're making videos, you get easily distracted and confused because you're trying to make sure that you're filling space or filling air while you're talking, right? In this case, I forgot to include the my flow gauge here. We're not going to strictly rely on this, but we will use it for a little bit, and I'm noticing now that it's kind of going to get in the way of the bucket here, but we are going to weigh out the bucket and everything like that, but we'll kind of do both methods. This has been accurate for me within like pretty much 0.1 of a GPM, so whatever this says is more or less correct. But anyway, we have the water turned on. It was great. See, this already worked. Water's been on already, and I was able to just switch that, no problem, no mess. So now we'll get this turned on. Cool, we got water flowing there. And I'm gonna grab another bucket really quick just to relieve any any air that might be in the line. And so let me do that real quick. See, there we go, we had a little bit of air. This time no leaks, which is really nice, but we'll see if we get any leaks under pressure. Okay, and I should grab as well, and I don't know where I put it, but here we go. This unit is very shrilly and I don't know if like loud by decibels, but it sounds like a universal motor, which is another thing, again, kind of non-starter for me at this price point, because every other one at this price point has an induction motor already. But let's go ahead and turn this on for the first time. You'll see something else here now that I don't like. They say 74 decibels, but I mean, you see that, like that's 90, that's not 74. I don't know what distance they're recording at. To me, it doesn't matter. There could be a lot of different things that happen when you kind of start recording, or rather measuring at a distance. And they've told me over the phone that it should be like, I think 74, 75 decibels, not even close. It's like that on like the ramp down procedure where it's running at like 1 amp. So still super loud and super high frequency. So that's just, yeah, not great for me. But I don't know. Other people don't seem to mind. Keith doesn't seem to care. He thinks it's not even comparable to a universal motor. To me, it's identical. But so what I also don't like is that it starts up, kicks up like that for a good amount of time, makes all this extra noise where no other pressure washer kind of ramps up in that matter. That's because of the electric magnet motor technology. But you know, I don't really care about any new technology if it's not going to be providing me any benefits, right? And thus far, while I applaud them for trying something new, I don't see us benefiting from it in any way. It's louder, it's unpleasant compared to induction motors. The whole issue that we're having now is probably 99% certainty that it's an ECU issue. And that's only an issue on these because they don't run at like max potential at all times. It's based on computer programming, and that's going to determine what you're going to run at. But anyway, as you can see, this is all green. So we're at sort of max flow, if you would, already, or at the max capacity this is going to run at. And do I have the lid up here? I don't have the lid, so let me get that lid up there so we don't get water splashing everywhere. And it's not really a lid, it kind of was more inside than anything else. And I'll get out of the way here really quick. And now we'll kind of run things, and hopefully you'll be able to see the GPM, decibels, amperage, and PSI here. And I'll also let you guys know. And I did grab the 4.5, their standard 4.5 that comes included with the unit. That's all we're going to test today because I've tested other nozzles, and while I do move around in performance, I'm also moving around in performance just because this unit just isn't working right. But anyway, here we go. And oh, I should probably start a stopwatch. That would probably be good. Boom. And what you'll notice there is pretty much when it's like ramping down, or right when it's about to start its ramp down procedure, it does get louder and the amps do spike. I don't know why it decides to run at full potential power when it should be ramping down instead of running at full potential power when you're using it. On this run, we got some of the best results. I think this is the third best result that I've gotten out of the near 30 that I've done. We were reading 1.9 GPM here. We were definitely higher in the amps than we were previously. I know some people are going to argue with me that, oh, why were you recording the decibels, or keeping track of the decibels with the gun right next to it? The gun is obviously louder. I can already tell you we know that this isn't the case even in this video just now over the course of the last 2 minutes, because when we originally turned the unit on, this was hitting 90 dB and there was no water running through it. And so it was less loud while we were using it, or rather while we were using it here. And so while that could have contributed, the unit itself does still get extremely, extremely loud. But anyway, I couldn't really see the amps while we were running, so maybe I'll just pull the trigger and we'll see what amps we were getting. And I'll use a different bucket, that way I don't mess up the scale over here. And I'm kind of now just realizing that we were in watts. Okay, just finished cleaning up a bit of a mess because spraying into a bucket with no lid on it, bad idea. But anyway, I had this set to watts instead of amps. So that kind of sucks, but we'll just get that changed out really quick. That kind of really invalidates everything that we just did, unfortunately, with that last run, because, well, I already have the water here, and because of how inconsistent everything is, or has been, I'm probably not going to get the same amperage that I was getting beforehand at whatever that run was, but I guess that'll also show you guys how inconsistent this is, so that's also important. But we'll run this now and see what we get, and then maybe we'll pay attention to the GPM gauge and see if we're still getting, I believe the reading was 1.9. And see, this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. Now that I'm recording sort of the performance for the first time, and I have a couple of clips here and there of like the bad performances as well. Now I'm pretty much getting what we should have been getting all the time. This thing's going to 15 amps. The gauge said 2.1, even though earlier said 1.9. And so again, another great level performance that we hadn't seen previously. This makes me want to keep on, doing this over and over again. But what I will do immediately now is, let me take this lid back, and we'll put that right back on here. It's even going to get some extra points because there's some extra drops on here from when we just sprayed it down there. And we're going to record the weight. So we'll just shut this off really quick, move this a little bit. And then we'll get our weight measurement and see how accurate our gauge was. And so I know this bucket weighs 2 pounds 1 ounce with the lid on from previous measurements. And so we'll just start off with nothing. Hopefully you guys can see that there, but otherwise I'll just tell you guys once we got that done. Put that guy on the scale. Let this normalize out. And I hope you guys can see that. 18 pounds flat, or 18 pounds 1 ounce. We'll give it the extra ounce because it's 2 pounds 1 ounce anyway, so we got 16 pounds effectively. And so I'll just put that in here, 16 pounds of water, 2 gallons. Yeah, and gauge was pretty spot on. 16 pounds of water is 1.917 gallons. And so while, that's not horrendous if this was supposed to be a 2 GPM unit, it's pretty terrible for what should be a 2.5, especially if they're saying in their testing they're consistently getting 2.4 gallons. And so we just got 2.1 on the meter earlier. Let me dump this out and just entertain you guys for a little bit and see what we get on another run and see if anything changes, because these last 2 runs have been top 3, I think, of everything that I've gotten thus far. So let me dump this out. We'll be right back and we'll run one more test. That way we can get really clean amps, PSI, and here. And for the record, I think the PSI that we were getting previously when we got that 1.9 run, 1.9 GPM run, was around 800 PSI. All right, so let's try this again. I've got the stopwatch set up. And so here we go. All right. Yes, yes, yes. Come on. All right, there we go. Was a little slow on that, off by a second, but again, we see like this video is making a clown out of me. Now we got all-time highest kind of performance that I've gotten. It's the only time that I've had it run at 15 amps. In fact, it consistently ran at 15.1, you saw there, which is a bit over on their stock nozzle. And so I'm for sure going to include now the footage that I had sent over to Kiev and to the Maxflow folks, showing it that it was, severely underperforming, because again, super inconsistent. This is the first time that I get results that I think I'm supposed to be getting. Anyway, let's go ahead and let me get this down really quick, and then that way we can start off with a blank slate in terms of weights. All right, so we're zeroed out here. And let's see what we got this time around. 20 pounds, 11 ounces. That's an all-time record since I've been testing this. And so we're gonna do 20, it should be 18 pounds, 10 ounces once we consider the bucket weight. So 18 pounds and 10 ounces. Okay, so that is, come on, 2.19 gallons. This was showing us 2.2. Yeah. Or actually, no, it's total gallons, 2.19 plus 0.11. I don't know where the 0.11 is coming from. I think that's the 10 ounces, so 2.3. So that's the number that I was expecting the entire time. That's the number we should have gotten. I'm not sure what PSI we were running because I just wasn't paying attention. I was just so distracted and dumbfounded that we actually got performance that we were kind of looking for the entire time. But yeah, I think we were finally where we were supposed to be. And so I'm going to send this to the Maxflow guys again. And yeah, just so weird. I'm going to clean this stuff up, and then I'm just going to wrap this video up really quick to kind of give you guys my thoughts and my perspective on what, should happen next from here. All right, so this has taken up way more time than I thought it would have. When I was originally recording the video last week, when I finally got my hands on the unit, I was in a rush because it was my last day here before I had to go travel and meet up with a client and visit them for a week. And so I was really hoping this one was going to be quick. Generally, to get these performance figures and everything like that, it's typically an hour and a half process. In terms of getting the raw numbers, again, these are just first impression things. This isn't supposed to be a long-term review of any kind. But in order to get these numbers, generally hour and a half, just run it a couple times, and so that's what I was expecting. Realistically, it took up like at least 7 hours that first day of just trying to troubleshoot all these different things that happened. We saw the pump saver thing beforehand. The issues that I was having with on that first day, I never even started the unit because the unit never started because of the GFCI tripping issue. And then outside of that, I think Maxflow, just in general for me, is not for me, I would say. Their permanent magnet motor, I am excited and agree that new technologies are really great, especially for people to kind of push those boundaries, and innovation is always necessary and all that stuff. But at the same time, as somebody who really only values performance, or not really only values performance, but where that's kind of most important, right? I don't think that there's any real world value that a consumer today gets with this permanent magnet motor technology. In fact, I think it's kind of more of a headache than anything else, at least today with where it's at, because you have to deal with this super loud noise. You're not getting any real like power efficiency benefits, which is the main claim for this. Just overall as technology, I just don't think that we're seeing it yet here. But yeah, you're just having to deal with that. You're dealing with the inconsistency of, whereas normally an induction unit would be quieter as well as a much better pitch frequency wise, that will always run at the max potential power. Here we're computer limited, and so just like you've seen in this example, because of that need for a ECU, things are inconsistent, and you're not going to get consistent performance. And so there just are way too many cons right now, and I don't know, nobody can mention a real gain to me, so there's no benefit for this right now. Maybe down the road there will be, but today there isn't. And so other things like the having to ramp up for a very long time, having to ramp down for a very long time, these are all things no other product, because of the technology, has to deal with. And so for me, these are all non-starters in my life. And so for me, like it isn't something that I would be ecstatic to purchase or anything like that. But I know that other people simply don't care about any of that stuff. And if something turns on and it gets good numbers, which I don't think is a bad mentality to have, I think the bad mentality to have, and what a lot of consumers generally have, is if it turns on, it's great. But I think at a minimum, it should turn on, and then it should also get good numbers. And so that's what I was hoping would happen here. I would hope that at least like I could say that if you're okay with all these other things that I'm not a fan of, that the performance is going to be great, and that you should highly consider one because of the performance. And so because of the performance inconsistencies, today I can't give a recommendation one way or another. I would say today the recommendation I would give is to hold off. So it's not a no, don't buy this. It's not a no, you shouldn't consider this. It's a we should wait and see what happens in the next month. So this unit is going to go back to Maxflow, and they're going to kind of do a root cause analysis to try to figure out why the performance was erratic. I've also talked to them and told them that they should get in touch with AMI Detail regarding his unit, because while he wasn't complaining about it, his unit is also severely underperforming versus what the expectations are. At the very end here, we got a good result, much better than what he did as well. But still, the only two data points that are out there in the wild that we're seeing are his and mine, and those two data points seem to point to a problem. And so what I would say is this should be like a wait and see for consumers. We can see if like maybe in the next batch, maybe this was just the first batch that went out to pre-orders that was bad, and the second wave, which the influencer should be getting as well. So I know Keith, his package is already out, and so hopefully he'll get it next week. And so hopefully at the end of the week we get a Maxflow video from him, and maybe in that second batch there's going to be a difference and there'll be more consistent performance. But for now there seems to be an issue at least on batch 1. And so for me, I would just hold off and see kind of like what those results are from the second wave, but then also see if there's any fix for these guys as well. And, I have no doubts that Maxflow is going to step up and do the right thing. That's in stark contrast to what some other brands from other parts of the world that look like Ryobi, how they've handled and responded to these type of situations. They've been pretty excellent to sort of communicate back and forth with. They've been very responsive to the, I guess, issues and the feedback that I've been giving thus far throughout this. And I've been in constant communication with them since pretty much the leaking of the pump's saver fluid. I've been in communication with them since, back and forth. They've reached back out to me as a follow-up, which when people tell me that they're going to follow up, I generally don't expect that to ever happen. The retailer certainly never did. They told me every day that they were going to follow up. They never followed up a single time. And so Maxwell seems to be doing a great job there, and it's always been from a receptive place as opposed to a defensive, you don't know what you're talking about or whatever, which has been, from what I've understood, the response from other brands. And so, yeah, I have no doubts that they're probably going to stand behind the product and do the right thing and either, replace the units, update their firmware, whatever the case needs. I'm like 99% positive that this is just a software issue and not a hardware issue because, again, we eventually do see the unit getting what it should be getting, but it was one result out of close to 30 different times that this got tested that it finally got to close to where it should be. And the other two follow-up ones were further away, but then only happened twice. And then every other time was, 30%, 40% below what the expectations were. And so, yeah, wait and see. Probably do a follow-up hopefully in a month if things get solved that quickly. And yeah, thanks for sticking through this. This one's probably going to be a hard watch. It's probably going to be even harder edit because I'm not really content with how this entire video went. It's not how I wanted it to kind of go from a formatting perspective and all that. It's been very difficult to control because all the results have been weird. Right before I started shooting, I tested it out a couple of times to see like, okay, am I going to get that consistent? Because last night I was talking to Maxwell until like 10:30 p.m. and just sending some footage over. At that point, there was a certain point after X amount of rounds of testing where I was just getting 1.6 GPM. And so I was like, okay, I'm probably going to get 1.6 GPM now. I'll record that, talk about the entire thing. And then we kind of saw a progressive climb. I think before I started shooting, I got, 1.8. And then I was like, okay, well, we'll see what happens on camera. And then we got 1.9. And then when we did it a second time, because I forgot to switch this to amps instead of watts, we saw it reach an all-time high for all the days that I've been testing it, and finally hitting 115 amps here, and then also getting us, 2.3 GPM. So, yeah. Thanks so much for sticking around. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.